Welcome to Thursday, a little Thursday cocktail hour with IB Nation Sports Talk. Glad to have you along. He's Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. Jesse, before we begin, let's go over the ground rules. No touching of the hair or face.
Is that Anchorman or is
Now
that
let's do this.
Irish breakdown?
That's a little Anchorman, but you got a critique earlier this week, so
Yeah.
I felt I had to drop that in there on you. So I like the hat.
Thanks.
Is that the father-in-law to be gift?
It is. It's a golf hat. It's got the cowboy star on it. And today is Thursday, so I golfed before work and I wore this hat out there. So
nice.
Very
I like
summery.
it. You look like you got a little bit of sunshine out there today. It is we in, we out day, so we've got a lot of stuff that we'll cover, of course, on today's show. DK, who is a subscriber, of course, of the Champions Lounge, has already thrown out a lot of different questions for you here today. We in, we out. Jesse sells half of his wedding gifts on Facebook Marketplace and blows it all on FanDuel.
I wouldn't be married probably if that happened. So.
Well, you're not married yet.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Because this is after, I think I would quickly be no longer married. I think the wedding gifts are going to have to pay off some debt that I'm going to go into, I think.
You're going to have to sell blood to pay for the wedding? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, correct.
Your pending nuptials have become a hot topic of conversation on this show. Vince got hit up because of your comments from a couple of days ago, basically, whether or not Vince would get the invite. And I don't think Vince took it as well as I thought he would when I basically said, look, you're putting on a wedding. There's a price per person, the people hosting the wedding.
Yeah, so we've already done some basic math. 100 people to eat and drink is going to be around $10,000.
There you go. So, that's what, $100 a head?
$100 a head is what it comes down to.
There's no way you're getting $100 gift out of Vince. So he's off the list, right?
In order to come, you must reciprocate the value in some way.
Yes, you have to help offset what the couple is spending to have your butt in that seat. That's
correct.
What I'm saying. And Vince ain't cutting it. I'm sorry.
I don't know if Vince has ever spent $100 or seen $100 bill.
Well, because then DK also says, in or out, Vince takes the IB staff out to dinner to celebrate his son's scholarship. This just ain't happening. Vince is not footing the bill for anyone whose last name is not D'Addario. I'm sorry.
And even then, it's a 50-50.
I almost moved, I guess it's been 8 years ago now, to take a job. This was well before I came to work here. I almost moved out of state. It was kind of a sayonara situation, and it was me and Vince and another buddy. We went out, and guess who cheapskated his way out of even buying me one beer for my presumed going away party? That's right, D'Addario. D'Addario will skate on the money every time. So there you have it. We'll come back to some of those others that DK dropped in there in a little bit. Let's just get this thing started, though. Let's fire it off. Hit the like button if you would, of course. And I do see in the chat that there's already some conversation about our old buddy Ted. And I don't know if Ted got completely banned. I do know that Brian dropped in kind of on the backside during the show yesterday and did put him in timeout, and then Ted never came back. So I think we're probably all better off for it until Ted can behave, basically. So we do have a lot of wide receiver conversation that came up in today's We In, We Out. And, of course, the place to submit the questions for We In, We Out every Thursday is the Champions Lounge, the Champions Premium Lounge. That's where you do it. Notre Dame's offense, this one comes from NH. Notre Dame's offense is more explosive and shows more wide receiver talent during the season, such that a wide receiver flips his commitment to Notre Dame. Jesse, right off the bat, coming in hot, receiver commitment question. We in, we out on that.
I'm just going to say we end because I do believe that the offense is going to show much more explosion and wide receiver talent compared to really the last 3 or 4 seasons. And ultimately, if you're a wide receiver, you want to play, or a quarterback, you want to play in an offense that's going to give you the most touches, the most the most exposure, and obviously, what comes off of that is explosive plays. So I think you're going to see a resurgence in Notre Dame's offense, and that is going to be largely because of the wide receiver room, downfield passing, etc. And that's all because of Mike Denbrock. So I think once you start seeing these guys fit into Mike Denbrock's scheme, I think it's going to translate to recruits, piquing interest in recruits. So I do think they'll be able to steal one of them because of that.
Negative recruiting is a thing. Negative recruiting is a real thing, and that's what this is referring to. And look, if that's the knock that you have on Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman got the right guy to run the offense, right? All you've got to do, and it's what we've been doing this entire offseason, is looking what he and Jaden Daniels did together at LSU. Malik Neighbors obviously played a big part of it. They had obviously a lot of talent on that offense, but you bring that to Notre Dame. Riley Leonard has talked about it. The offense that he ran at Duke, not that dissimilar from the offense that Mike Denbrock was running at LSU. And of course, that's what they're going to get here. And I absolutely am in on this. The offense is going to look, I think that it is going to look so different than anything that we have probably seen, maybe since like Brady Quinn and Jeff Samardzija and Maurice Stovall and those guys were putting up numbers in 2005 and 2006. And, for what college football is now, I think that it stands to be even more explosive. So if that's truly the biggest holdup, if that's holding these guys back, is their potential to come to Notre Dame to prove themselves as wide receivers and ultimately get drafted by an NFL team. Okay, I think what you're going to see this year is going to turn some heads. I think it's going to turn some heads big time. So I am in on this. We're going to see a lot different look. Domer Grizz, a freshman safety, will play meaningful reps this season. We in or we out on that?
I know that includes Adon Schuler, I believe, right?
Yes, he is a redshirt freshman, so he does count. Even though he was here last year.
Does Minnick count?
I count Schuler, I count Minnick, Tay Johnson, Kennedy Urlacher, and Tabron Benny-Powell are the freshman candidates who fit in this.
Yeah, I think Adon Schuler is going to play a lot of minutes at that strong safety position or boundary safety position, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to say in on this, and I think even outside of Adon Schuler, I think someone like Ben Minnick is going to get an opportunity. I think where you might draw the line is Urlacher. I think he's the guy who is really the kind of in and out on is, do we see Urlacher getting some sort of minutes? I'm going to be out on him preliminarily because I think
developmental.
I think Minnick and Schuler are going to be your two young safeties that are going to get some meaningful minutes this season.
I'm in on this for sure because the guy that you talked about, Adon Schuler, what we saw from him this spring, he might not be a starter, but I think that he's going to find himself in different packages. And as I've said before, I wouldn't be completely shocked if we see a three safety look, like we used to see with Jalen, Elliott, Alohi Gilman, and Kyle Hamilton when Hamilton was a freshman, between like Adon Schuler, Rod Hurd, and Xavier Watts out there. I wouldn't be shocked at all if we see all three of those guys on the field. So I think Schuler is going to figure in quite a bit. The others, a little bit more wait and see, but I'm confident enough in Schuler that I'm willing to definitely go in on this on a freshman safety getting meaningful reps because again, we're counting Schuler, even though he's been here for a year, he's got all 4 years of eligibility left, so he's a redshirt freshman. So in on that. This one is from T. James Davis 12. I almost read that wrong. Jadon Blair outperforms Ivan Taylor in their college careers. In or out on that, Jess?
Oh, Jaden Blair outperforms. I'm gonna have to leave that one up to you because I'm not gonna lie, I don't.
Two freshmen, or not even freshmen. Two guys in the 25 class.
There you go.
Blair committed last week, and of course Ivan Taylor decommitted from Notre Dame and flipped his commitment to Michigan. I mean, we got to go in on this, right? Like, we're not going to predict Ivan Taylor to outperform Jadon Blair. I just mentioned Kyle Hamilton, and when you look at the size that Blair has, it is strikingly similar to Kyle Hamilton. Whether or not he plays like that, I don't know, but like you're talking about, unicornish, type size and skill and everything else. So I think that this guy is going to come in and he's going to be a big factor for Notre Dame in the course of his career. And Ivan Taylor, whatever happens, happens up there in Ann Arbor. So we'll go all in on Jadon Blair. And it is at least worth noting that around the time all of this was happening, with Blair committing and Taylor flipping, when the new recruit rankings came out, Blair was rising and Taylor was falling. So be good with that. Going back to,
I do like, just side note, like you were saying, I like my safeties to be tall. I like tall, lanky players in the secondary. Maybe that's the Dan Quinn in me. But he's got, 4 inches on Taylor. And again, sorry, did I have that right? Yes, I do have that right. He's got 4 inches on Taylor. So again, I think height goes a long way, especially when you're playing safety, because I think quarterbacks are more trying to layer throws. You know what I mean? It's getting the ball up and down, right? And so the taller you are, the more bigger wingspan you have. It's just tighter windows and less up and down throws that the quarterbacks can complete. And I know that's like real service level, but just looking at it in that regard, we're talking about two of, very highly touted safeties. And so like right now, how much can we actually say is difference between their games? But just looking at it on paper, I really do like a guy that's taller.
Yeah, physically, I saw somebody say it. I can't, but it's Mike saying, Blair is a Kyle Hamilton clone. From a physical standpoint, yeah. The biggest question is going to be, does he have the same kind of instinct that Kyle Hamilton walked in the door with? Because that's what was able to get him on the field right away. He had so much instinct, and they started off small with him, let him kind of get his feet underneath him and learn a little bit, and then got him out there more and more on the field with those other guys as well. So I think instinct is going to be the biggest thing. Sloppy Joe, I like my safeties, like my drinks, tall. I think it was DK. Did DK point this out? Where did it go? Oh, yeah, the Floyd, Clausen, Floyd, Tate. I mean, that's good. Again, I think it gets overshadowed because the defense was so bad. They obviously put points on the board, but they were far from record setting. I think that this stands a chance to be, with all the talent that they have, I think that this stands a chance to be a really record-setting offense for the Fighting Irish this season with Riley Leonard and those receivers he's going to have out there. This one is from Indy Gunner. Riley Leonard being capable of putting up impressive enough passing numbers to start attracting wide receiver recruits again. We in or we out on that? I mean, this is very similar to what we were talking about before, but I'll let you go ahead and go.
Yeah, I think that we in on Riley Leonard not only being capable, but I think he is going to put up impressive passing numbers. But it's more than that. I think it goes. I think Riley Leonard has to kind of scratch the surface or knock on the door, I guess you could say. But Deuce Knight and CJ Carr are going to be the ones that have to open the door and really, try to get these wide receivers on board, because it's not only, a relationship between how, offensive coordinator type of offense, but you want to have a good relationship with your quarterback, right? And I think that's something that Deuce Knight is so good about, is he's always doing what he can to help recruit basically on behalf of Notre Dame. So again, I think Riley Leonard is going to do enough to, again, knock on the door, but what is Deuce Knight and the rest of the company going to do to get themselves into the door, to get these guys, fully on board of, okay, I'm believing what you're saying and what Notre Dame can do for me.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, let's not forget, Jaden Greathouse is only a sophomore. Faison is only a sophomore. You've got guys like Micah Gilbert and Cam Williams who are true freshmen. Logan Saldati, who is a true freshman. KK Smith, who is a redshirt freshman. Those are all young and talented guys. So, like, don't get so, myopic that you can't see the big picture, that there is still some good, really good wide receiver talent, young wide receiver talent on this roster. So it's not like Notre Dame has been whiffing for 5 years on getting talent here. They've got talent here. Obviously, they've got a different wide receiver coach right now who needs to, he needs to pick things up. They need to get it going again. But, again, we've hashed and rehashed all this stuff this week. My bottom line is yes, because you get legit quarterbacks on the roster, and they're going to make your wide receivers look better. I said Faison. Joe. I said after Greathouse, I said Faison is a sophomore. And, of course, you have his brother coming in next year as well. So, yeah, people need to see it, right? That's the biggest thing. And if they need to see it, they're going to see it this year. And then, as you said, Jesse, with these quarterback recruits that are coming behind with CJ Carr and Deuce Knight, you're going to continue to see it. But they've got to kind of continue to beat that drum as well. And I've seen him out there on social media this week. Deuce especially, Deuce obviously because CJ can't now for the team. But got to keep beating that drum and get him here. And it'll happen. But again, some people just need to see it. So this one from Rebel Irish, more wide receiver talk. Deion Colzie has a Miles Boykin type breakout season and becomes a huge target for Riley Leonard. In or out on that, Jesse?
I'm going to say out. I think Deion Colzie is going to have contribution, probably more so than he has in the past, but I don't put it as like a Boykin type season. You got to remember Boykin had a good enough season that he became, a drafted wide receiver essentially, right? So I don't see that as Deion Colzie type. You know what I mean? I think he's going to produce, just not to that level essentially.
I just think that it's going to be too tough. That's Bo Collins, Jaden Thomas, Deion Colzie are all three at boundary. And I think that that's going to be their primary thing. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to move around and play some other spots as well. But I see Colzie as more of a situational kind of guy. Yeah, I agree with what DJ's saying. I think that there's still a better chance that Jaden Thomas breaks out than Deion Colzie breaks out, because just look at last season. Thomas was still ahead of Colzie on the depth chart. Colzie had that nice game against Navy, and then unfortunately had the knee injury, and it was still up and down and all that kind of stuff. So I've got to be out on Colzie having a huge breakout this season, just because of the other guys at his position, is like, especially Bo Collins. I think that Bo Collins is going to have himself a year in this offense personally. So I think it's going to be too tough with those three guys at that position. This one is from DJ. By the end of fall camp week 1, fans will have created starter controversies for 4 or more position groups. We in or we out? We'll say this. We got the fall camp schedule today, and we're not allowed to talk about dates and, any of that kind of stuff, but we're only going to get to see, we're glad that we get to see it, but we're only going to get one full practice viewing, and it's going to be day 1, which means we're not going to see anybody in full pads that day. We'll get partial viewing for, I think, 6 other practices. So unless someplace along the way they make the decision to open up more than what's on the initial schedule, I don't know. By the end of week 1, I would say maybe by the end of week 2, after we,
I thought this was out of fall camp, not week 1. I read this wrong. I think out of fall camp is more of a fun question.
Yeah, I mean, did I read this right? I think DJ's still in the chat. Like, he's saying by the end of the first week of camp, fans start creating controversies for 4 more position groups. I think that's what he's saying.
You know what? I'm just going to say we in because I feel like this is Notre Dame has a very reactionary fan base. And that's just because of the expectations that the fans have, right? And rightfully so. You want a team that you feel like is going to compete for a national championship every season. And when you don't feel like you're getting that, you start to become reactionary of, okay, what needs to change? What's this or that? I'm just going to say we in, but I think a more fun question is what 4 position groups would it be? I came up with mine.
Okay, go ahead.
Um, I think that quarterback is always a hot topic. I think there's always going to be someone out there that says Angeli can do what Riley Leonard can't, and etc. So I'm just going to say quarterback because it comes up
Okay.
every year.
That's fair.
Every year.
Totally fair.
I think one offensive line position. I don't know where that's at, but I think it's fair to say one offensive line position.
Okay.
And then on defense, I think Viper and Rover would be your 2. So Botello and Sneed.
Yeah, I can see that because you're also going to have Jaden Osbury in the mix there.
That's right. No one's going to be happy between Sneed and Osbury. Right. There's going to be people camping for one side or the other.
You're right about Botello. That's going to be a thing, especially if Traore is playing well and whatever snippets that we get to see. USMA 87 is saying wide receiver, linebacker. There's a lot of depth at the wide receiver position.
I don't think wide receiver is going to be an issue.
Yeah, but everyone's going to have their favorites. Just like the Colsey question, for example. I think that we're gonna hear some of that. So I can see that happening. Linebacker is going to be a thing. Linebacker is going to be a thing all year because Kaiser's probably going to play more than most people want him to play. So you're going to.
I thought about Kaiser too because of that. It's going to be an older guy. They're going to be like, we got younger guys. Why are we still sticking with Kaiser?
Yeah.
And they're going to call him slow. They're going to call him, he's got short arms. You can go down the list.
And then you're going to get a Drake Bowen KVA
debate
going because, again, everyone already wants to see that. And I wouldn't be surprised if Kahana Kia
so basically what we've got to is every position is up for debate.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say I'm in, DJ. I think that everywhere we go, someone's gonna have their little pet project, and we're gonna have controversies galore. I think that's what's gonna happen. So yeah, definitely in on that. Hey, you're probably right. USMA 87 says not D line, but Viper is part of the defensive line. So yeah, not running back. I would agree with that. But the Viper will be the biggest position on the defensive line. Although I could still see that other end if Josh Burnham plays like he, is capable of playing in whatever we get to see.
The thing about the defensive line, though, is that they run so many, the bodies are going to get in there. You're still going to see bodies. Right. Notre Dame doesn't just stick one guy out there for every snap. They're constantly rotating guys in and out.
And that's where I think maybe
that naturally takes care of itself, really, unless you're really concerned about who's 1 and who's 2.
Yeah. Well, and that's where maybe some of the conversation starts to crop in during the season. As if a backup starts making more plays than the guy in front of him, and then you start hearing, well, why isn't this guy out there more? Why isn't that guy out there more? From Hesburgh Mafia, while we are behind all of our main heavy-hitting wide receiver recruits as of now, this offense will show one of them that Notre Dame is for real with this coaching staff, and we will flip one of them in December/January postseason. I told you, man, coming in hot and heavy on recruiting or, wide receiver recruiting. That's just the way this week has gone. Do you have anything to add?
I got nothing more to add. I feel like I've answered this question 2 times already.
And I will say this. I think that because of what we're talking about here, the way the offense is going to perform, I think that Notre Dame will flip at least one wide receiver over the course of the season, even if it's not someone, like the 3 guys, for example, who are going to commit within the next week. Even if
they're going to pull someone outside of the radar.
Yes, they'll get somebody. I think that they will get somebody. They will work, and they will keep working. And I think that they'll get at least a flip by the time signing day, the early signing period rolls around in December. I think that they will flip somebody. DK says, whatever I do, don't question the punter in the press conference if he's present. Okay. Ball Peen Shillelagh. The special teams unit's ability to flip the field and gain good field position is critical in multiple Notre Dame wins this season. We in or out on that. How important is the special teams ability to flip the field going to be?
Yeah, I mean, this is there's layers to this question. I think special teams is important every game, but I think they're going to become even more important in the critical games, the on the road at Texas A&M, the at home versus Florida State, the potentially on the road at USC to end the season. And Marcus Freeman has talked about this last year, and this is honestly something I got frustrated with last season as well. The expectation isn't to score every single time you touch the ball as an offense. If you're not going to score, you at least need to pick up a couple first downs and flip the field with punting the ball. And again, that was a frustration on Marcus Freeman's end last year. Is this offense doesn't have to be this juggernaut that just is again putting up 60, 70 points a game, but you still need to be competent enough to pick up some yards, not go 3 and out, give your defense a rest, and be able to really flip the field. And I think it comes most into play really the first game of the season because you're going to be on the road. You're going to have a lot of early on jitters. And so you still need to be able to flip the field as much as possible.
I see Henry's wide awake and enthusiastic.
Yeah. It's his gotcha day today, actually.
What's that?
The day we got him 3 years ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, I'll
congratulations, Henry. Yes. Eat some of that nasty smelling canned wet food that you love so much.
He got a banana with peanut butter for breakfast this morning.
All right. I mean, I'm going to go in on this because I think it's mostly where this is going to come into play is the bigger games, the Texas A&M, the Florida State. I think you mentioned USC. I still don't think Louisville is going to be as good as they were last year. So if I would maybe make that the 4th tier game. But the question here is it comes into play in multiple Notre Dame wins. So against the 2 tougher opponents of the season, Texas A&M and Florida State, the kind of defense that Notre Dame has, you flip the field, the defense pins the offense deep. Something big happens created by the defense, whether it's a stop or a turnover, whatever it happens to be. I'll buy it because I think that it will. I think it will definitely be a factor in those kind of games. Another one from Ball Peen. We see another dominant defensive performance this season, a la 2022 Clemson or 2023 USC. Furthermore, this year the unlucky team getting eaten alive by the defense is Florida State. We in or we out on that?
So what that Clemson and USC game have in common, or the common denominator, is both those games are at home. I think Notre Dame plays more comfortably at home, like most teams. So I do believe this has to come in a home game. And so, I look at the Louisville game and I look at the Florida State game. I think the Louisville game is more so as a vendetta because of what happened last year. Right? Like you have a lot of bulletin board material, exterior motivation, etc. So I'm just going to say we out because I think it's more likely to happen against the Louisville team. I think the Louisville team this year is going to be less talented than last year's team and less talented than Florida State.
So are you saying the only way it happens is in the home environment, basically?
Yes.
Because I'm looking at this, making sure. I think it's going to happen against Texas A&M myself.
Okay.
So I'm going to go out on it as well, but for a different reason. I see what you're saying.
Coaching staff, first time quarterback, first time offensive coordinator, being in the SEC, playing a good team that has. That's the thing is there's going to be no question about Notre Dame's. Notre Dame's defense is going to be the constant the entire game. There's going to be no real. At least we hope there's going to be no real questions there. The questions are what is the offense going to do to separate itself, essentially, right?
Right.
And so I see that logic for sure.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. The biggest question is how good is Texas A&M's defense going to be? How well is Notre Dame's offense going to perform on the road in that situation? Remember now, helmet communication for the first time. So, they'll have signs and stuff
Thanks,
as a
you
backup.
cheaters. Thanks, you cheaters.
Yes, that's right. But, I think John B is saying, why not both? Well, he's saying the unlucky team getting eaten alive by the defense is Florida State. So he's saying specifically that it has to be Florida State. Could it also be Florida State? Yeah. But I like it happening against that Texas A&M offense more than I like it against Florida State. Could happen against Florida State. They've done well against DJ Uiagalelei before, but I'm going to go A&M. Another one from Ballbean. If you could only use one eating utensil for the rest of your life, it would be a knife. We in or we out on that. This is an interesting one. So fork, knife, spoon. What are you going with?
I'm gonna say we in on it being a knife because with a knife I still have it. No. Actually, I take that away. I'm going with the fork because I can use the fork as a cutting edge and a stabber at the same time. So it's harder to stab with the knife, but obviously it's better at cutting. But like a knife or a fork is essentially a spoon if you're able to, use it properly.
And I just want to make sure. Okay, so he didn't specify any others. I'm out on this. I'm going with a spork, the combination spoon fork, where you've got, like the prongs at the end, but it is also a spoon. So I'm going spork so that I can still eat my soup if I want to, but I can also stab my food. I can eat a salad if I need to, or, whatever. So I'm going spork on this. I initially was leaning toward in on the knife because I do like a steak, but it's, let's face it, you can just pick the steak up and eat it with your hands if you need to. So like I said, DJ, he's saying that I'm cheating by going with that. He didn't rattle off any, he didn't give any other options. He just said only utensil, rest of your life, it would be a knife. So I'm out. I'm going with the spork. Sue me. Joe says Nebraska could go 11-1 with their only loss to Ohio State, but they are snubbed out of the playoffs because Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State will make it in instead. In or out on that from Joe, the Omaha man.
If Nebraska goes 11-1, they're in the playoff.
I think so too.
So I'm going to say we out.
And my instinct is out, but I need to look at their schedule here real quickly. Nebraska football schedule. I need to make sure who they're playing among, those other teams.
Really, they just have Ohio State, USC, and Iowa.
Right. And so, my point is they don't have to play Penn State. They don't have to play Michigan. So it's theoretically possible that their only loss could be to Ohio State because they play UTEP, Colorado, Northern Iowa, Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers, Indiana, Ohio State, UCLA.
I still feel like
USC,
they get an
Wisconsin,
at-large, though, at 11-1.
I think so, too. I think they're in. They go 11-1, and their only loss is to Ohio State. I think that they are most likely in, even though they could potentially have to play Ohio State in a rematch in the Big Ten championship game. So I've got to go. I'm out on this, right? Yeah, because I think Nebraska would make it in if they go 11-1. I don't think that they would be left out in comparison to those others. All right, played like a champion. Came with this big list once again today on We In, We Out Thursday on the show. And again, if you want to submit your questions for We In, We Out, the only place to do it is on the Champions Lounge at Irish Breakdown. So, from Played Like a Champion, Tosh Baker will start at right tackle against Texas A&M. In or out on that?
We in. I
I'm
don't
in as
think
well.
Wagner's going to do enough to be starting by game one.
I agree, and I don't.
It's a lot of comfortability in the first game of the year on the road, knowing it's got a lot of leverage for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And if Gerby Lambert is close, the freshman coming in the door, I don't see them starting a true freshman at right tackle on the road game one in that environment, like similar, to what you faced at Ohio State a couple of years ago. I see them going with the guy who has some experience, Tosh Baker. If it's close, maybe Gerby or Wagner overtakes him at some point during the season. There's not a lot of experience in that group, but Tosh Baker has the most of it. He's actually got a lot of experience. So I easily see them starting him at right tackle, unless he's just completely outplayed in training camp. Did you have something, Jess?
No, it's just I'm trying to pull something up right now and Google's just not working.
Just one of those things.
It's just spinning. It's like it's not like I'm doing anything crazy. Whatever.
Mike says he believes Gerby Lambert starts at right tackle. Again, may happen at some point during the season. I don't see it being game one on the road, Texas A&M. Don't see that happening.
There's just comfort. You're gonna, even if they feel like he's a little bit ahead, I just don't think they're gonna ask a true freshman to start an environment like that. I could be wrong, but
it's a big environment to walk into your very first game. Mike says Gerby's just better. Well, we shall see. We shall see. Again, if he completely outplays him, that's one thing, but would like to see Gerby go against a man-size defensive end
and
before I make that
defensive
decision.
end.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this season, 4 or more wide receivers will exceed Rico Flores's team-leading 27 catches from last year. In or out on that?
The thing that drives this for me is wide receivers. If you just said 4 players over 27 catches, I would have been in, because I think a tight end can be a part of that list. But if we're going pure wide receivers, I'm going to say out. LSU had 4 last season. One of them included a tight end. I mean, we all know about Neighbors and Thomas. But then they had I think Notre Dame's got enough talent that a third wide receiver is going to easily clear the 27. It's just a matter of, would a tight end also do it? And I think yes, but I don't think a 4th wide receiver will do it. So I would need a tight end to get to 4. So I'm out. Long story short, I'm out.
Jaden Greathouse, Bo Collins, Chris Mitchell, Jordan Faison.
Think all 4 are doing it?
Yes, I'm going in on this.
Okay.
I think that all 4 are going to get it because, you look at what Faison did last year as an example. Like Faison only played in 7 games and he had 19 receptions. Now, granted, part of that was because of the health of the receiver room and all that different kind of stuff. They were depleted. That's what got him on the field to begin with. But talent is talent. And I think that he's going to be out there a lot. And I think that Faison is going to be out there a lot. I think the 4 that I mentioned are going to be the 4 primary guys this season. Jaden Greathouse, Bo Collins, Chris Mitchell, Jordan Faison. That's what I think as of right now. July 11th, 2024, 20 days to go until the opening of Notre Dame training camp. So, yes, I'm going to go in on that. I think that 4 guys will do it. You're very pained, Jesse. Are you okay? Is your Google working any better?
Yeah, you just when you itched your back, it sent me.
You had to itch.
I got sunburnt on my back, and it is now very itchy.
Gotcha. Okay, another one from Played Like a Champion today. This season, 3 or more wide receivers will exceed Chris Tyree's team leading 484 receiving yards last season.
I'm going to say we in. Well,
I think.
See, this goes back to the conversation of like feeding enough mouse. Like, as a unit, they're going to be really good, but how that gets distributed out. Like, I think Great House and Mitchell are definitely up there. And then it becomes like, can Bo Collins and Faison be also up there? It's just, I don't know. I'm going to say we in. Screw it.
I'm in as well because I've got 4 guys with at least 27 receptions. And I think at least 3 of them will be over 484 yards. Like 3 of them will be around 500 or better. I'm not going to be as specific because I need to see kind of what how this whole thing operates first. But look, they're not running the offense through the tight ends like we've been seeing for 5-6 years, whatever it's been now. The offense isn't going through the tight end anymore. It is going to go through the wide receivers. The tight end is still going to be part of the offense, but it's not going to go through them. So I think that we're going to see a lot more. This goes back to everything that we've been talking about with the wide receivers really over the last week, and we've answered plenty of questions in this show about it, and they're legit questions because everybody's concerned about the future of the position and what's going on. It's going to look a lot different this year. It's going to turn some heads, this year. And ultimately, I think it's going to be all right. So I'm in on this as well. I'm surprised at how in I am on basically everything that Played Like a Champion has said so far.
Yeah, come on, Vince.
This season, 4 or more players, running backs, tight ends, and receivers, will match or exceed Great House's team-leading 5 touchdown receptions from 2023.
Sorry, my eyes just shifted downward to my name being spelled wrong and whatever question is coming out of.
Come on, head up.
Horrible
answer this question first. Don't get distracted.
I'm going to say we in only because they included the running back. If they didn't include Jordan Love, I would be out. But I think he is going to be your 4th player. I think you're going to have 3 wide receivers over 5, maybe a tight end, and Jordan Love.
Yeah, last year, Holden Stays.
And, I mean, you might be able to put Riley Leonard on that list, too.
But, yeah, so, I mean, 4 more players will match or exceed Great House's team-leading. Well, that's 5 touchdown receptions, so you're not going to be able to put Riley Leonard on that list. Because
you don't see receptions.
Because if you're talking about touchdowns scored, Great House didn't lead the team. Estime scored 18 touchdowns last year, so I think he's talking about receptions. And what I was getting ready to say, Great House had 5, Faison and Stays each had 4. And again, like those both ended up being guys who were basically like Stays had a good first half of the season, Faison had a good second half of the season. I think it's going to be 3 because get this question here. Anthony was asking, I see Leonard scoring several touchdowns. Does this impact these numbers? And I think, he's talking about the overall receiving numbers. Like you can still, like Leonard can still use the throw to get Notre Dame down in the red zone, deep in the red zone, like inside, the 10-yard line, and then he ends up scoring his own touchdown. He's going to have his share of touchdown runs. So like the receptions numbers, I don't see it skewing, but it will take away some opportunities. Like if you're going to have that many touchdown catches spread out over 4 different guys, Riley Leonard is definitely going to take away from some of that. And the production of the running backs, Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love actually running the ball into the end zone themselves is going to take away from some of that. So again, I think it's going to be spread out. I think you're more likely, to see like 6 guys with 3+ or something like that than necessarily 4 guys with 5+. That's kind of the way
I see the vision.
I would explain it. So, all right. So I've got to be out on that one. My first out for Played Like a Champion. So,
oh boy.
Now, some lighthearted ones that he's lobbing at you here. Jesse should be put in timeout from answering any Major League Baseball questions for at least 2 months after his horrible, indefensible, and irredeemable take that he would not have put Derek Jeter on his Hall of Fame ballot if he had a vote. I've got to be in on that. Like I'm going in on that. Like if you're,
I was being dramatic, but okay. Jeter isn't as hyped up as he should be. Is what I was getting at.
He's not as hyped up as he should be, or he's overhyped.
He's overhyped. Sorry.
Okay, I definitely agree he's overhyped, but I also would have made him a first ballot Hall of Famer. But then he also kind of called you out a little bit for your Aaron Boone take, and I was thinking of it. Maybe it is just time for the Yankees to move on from Aaron. I still put most of it on Cashman, but at this point, maybe it is time for him to move on. But there's some definite similarities between Yankees and Cowboys right now, just in terms of organizational philosophy. They're both more than willing, it seems like, and more than satisfied with just making the playoffs and cashing all the checks that come with attendance and TV contracts and everything else. And how much do they really, really want to win? I think that's the question.
I definitely understand, like, making an excuse for your center fielder who's playing lackadaisical on a ball and a guy is able to stretch a single into a double. Yeah, that stuff's inexcusable, right? But at the same time, he can't control that, Juan Soto and Aaron Judge are really the guys who are showing up day in and day out. It's not his fault Verdugo's been bad.
Yeah.
It's not his fault Torres has been hurt. You know what I mean? So, like, I get it. There's Rizzo has been hurt. There's things that are out of control of a manager, and really all you have left to do is use your farm system and the rest of the other players that were predetermined for you. You just have a pool of players, and your job is to make the best defense and offensive lineup. And so, yes, I do think he can do more, to keep these guys accountable, to get them to play at the quote-unquote Yankee standard. But then again, at the same time, he can't control the performance of guys, like I said, Verdugo, et cetera, guys that the front office acquired in the offseason that they deem to be guys that are going to be, helpful to this roster.
Yeah.
Baseball is hard for me because I get caught up. I feel like I'm more so, how people feel about Notre Dame and their expectations of football. I get pretty biased in baseball, I think, because I don't know why.
Your life, baseball is a big part of your life growing up, between playing and watching and everything else. And you're a very analytical person, and baseball.
That's what I mean. So, like, baseball is so analytical. Sport. It's cut and dry, like the stats are the stats. And so, like, that's why, and maybe that's like, a lot of people argue that modern baseball should be less analytical. So, like, that's just differing sides of opinion. But if I ran a team, if you had a high on base percentage, I've run my team like the A's, but I would have more money essentially to go out and pay more players.
Well, that's really what the Yankees and Red Sox have been for the last 20 years. They're basically the A's with big payrolls. But that's, that's part of the deal too with the payroll that the Yankees have. They've got one, if not the biggest, one of the biggest payrolls in baseball, and they vastly underperform when it comes to the playoffs. They typically get to the playoffs, but they haven't won anything in the playoffs in 15 years now. I put that up there. Jesse has a right to be ticked having his name spelled.
It's in the freaking banner. I think I give people the benefit of the doubt because I think autocorrect, if you've never typed the name before, wants you to use IE. But I could be wrong. But that's the only excuse I'd hear.
Notre Dame flips one wide receiver before November 1st. Yet another wide receiver question from D Troll. You in or out on that one, Jess, before November 1st?
I'm going to say we in. Because I think the offense is going to have a really a season that is going to impress.
I'm going to say out. I'm going to say, again, I think they're going to do it before the early signing period in December, but I think it will be essentially in November. It'll come kind of churning down the wire in November. I think it'll happen then, but I'm not going to say before November 1st. But I think they'll flip somebody. So I'm out on this. I think they'll flip somebody. I just don't think it'll happen before November rolls around. DK says we flip one and find a late bloomer. I wouldn't disagree with that either. In or out on destination weddings, Jess? Wonder where this one came from.
I'm gonna say we in because we're trying to do like a mini kind of destination themed, like a in the United States destination wedding.
Any update on possible destinations? Still a lot being kicked around right now.
Still a lot being there's basically the coastline of Michigan, like straight north of South Bend, so like Buffalo, New Haven, Grand Rapids, all the way up to Traverse City. And then we've started to kind of look at things, more locally as well, just in the Cleveland area. You just got to shop around. You got to find, it's piecing together kind of the whole thing. So
man, that $10,000 for 100 people just hit you in the face.
That starts you off right away, baby.
Man.
Then you add in venue; those are 5 to 10.
So that's just the food and the service. That's not even including
alcohol.
The venue.
That's no venue included. So you add in a venue, and you're probably looking at off the bat for food, venue, and booze, $15,000 to $20,000.
Maybe you should call Uncle DK and see if Uncle DK will chip in to help for the
some money,
foot the bill for the alcohol.
I'm telling you, I'm gonna start a GoFundMe.
Joe said he did his in Jamaica. I don't know, like that, like out of the country. That's a little bit much, unless you're going to keep it very exclusive when it comes to the family and stuff like that.
Well, that's the thing about destination that we find appealing is like we want to think about like people coming in on like a Wednesday night or Thursday, being there till Sunday. And what makes it good is you're not only there for the wedding, but you can also kind of get like a mini vacation out of it.
Yeah.
And we want to be in a place where there's opportunities to like go golfing or go out on the water or, you know what I mean? So groups of people can get together and just go out and, do whatever they want. Maybe they go do a spa day. Maybe they go golfing. Maybe they go fishing. You know what I mean? Just give people opportunities where, yes, they're here for the wedding, but also it's a vacation and they're with, family, friends of, all related to the same person. So you can catch up, have a good time, etc.
A lot of things to consider. Another one from D-Troll: sandals / exposed toe footwear on airplanes. In or out on that?
I gotta say, out. You do not bring the dogs out in a public space, in a public confined space.
I'm in on this, because if you're already wearing the sandals, I don't think your feet are going to stink. But if you're wearing the sweaty socks and the shoes, and then you're trying to take off your shoes and that's when the dogs are going to stink. But just sandals itself, I'm in. As long as you're okay with whatever crud is going to get on your feet, I'm in on that.
See, I was blessed to I have nice feet and I have nice toes. Unfortunately
says Mr. Manny Petty himself.
For other males out there, there's some nasty, sideways, broken, like my friend has a missing toenail on his big toe.
Wow.
And it's like, I don't need to see that. I don't need to see your crusty, like imagine Shaq walks up on an airplane in flip-flops. You telling me that's what you want to see?
Yeah, no kidding. Good call. Reese and Pieces. By the start of the 25 season, Notre Dame will have more Goldens than Owls. In or out on that?
I
mean, they're
is there a recruit named Golden?
Yeah. I think it's more.
I'm going to say we in just for the fun of it.
Sure. What the heck? In on that one. Dallas Golden being one of them. The other one, Notre Dame's special teams massively improved this year with returns, but they regress in kick coverage, includes block kicks and punts. And I'm
going to say we out. I think they are going to be better in returns. I do think that they will be They won't block as many kicks and punts and, that sort of stuff. But I still think their kick coverage will be fine. I think they're going to do enough. Like, I don't think that they're not going to block many. And I don't think the other team's return guy is going to break any, essentially. I think they're going to have good coverage down the field, even if it means, not getting basically turnovers off of special teams. I still think that, going back to earlier what I said, I think there is definitely a point of emphasis on this season of flipping the field, pinning teams deep. And what you have to realize, too, with these Australian kickers is they get a lot of roll on the ball. The ball is roll, there's a lot of – and so that plays to – the kicking team's advantage because no one wants to try to pick up a live ball that's rolling. So I think you're going to see Notre Dame down more punts this year, and I think you're going to see Notre Dame punter be able to kind of maneuver where he wants to put the ball better this season.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on this as well. I think that there's still going to there's going to be some improvement with returns. Maybe they even house a couple. So if like doing that means massive improvement, then maybe I'm in on it. But I don't think they're going to regress in kick coverage and that kind of stuff. And maybe the blocks fall off a little bit.
Yeah, but that bar was set so high. That's the thing.
I think like as last season wore on, you saw a steady improvement from special teams, and I think we'll continue to see that in year 2 with Biaggi this year. Joe said, would you rather see a block punt or a forced fumble on a return? I love the block punt because it's so sudden. It always seems to come out of nowhere. I loved it. So I'm going block punt. And BK used to tell us that nobody blocks punts anymore. So I'm definitely in on the block punt for a touchdown.
To me, it doesn't matter. Just get that turnover.
As the touchdown?
No, just get that turnover, baby.
Yeah.
Block punt's definitely more exciting. Do you remember back in my day, I didn't even have to block a punt. I just took the ball straight from him, baby.
Yeah, that's you. Take it right off the foot. Right?
That was in Pop Warner. Do you remember that? I broke through and maybe it was a handoff. You remember that? I took that. The quarterback gave the ball to hand it off, and I broke through the defensive line and I took the handoff myself.
Ripped it out
and ran the other way. I'm pretty sure I got tackled on like the 5-yard line.
Probably so. But I do remember that play. I don't remember the end of the play, but I do remember.
I think I only scored like 2 touchdowns in my whole life, and they both came in my freshman football career.
Yeah. DK calling you lightning. We've got a rapid fire question that's going to tie into that lightning in just a little bit.
I have a pick 6 on my resume. Do you?
No. We're digressing. We're digressing. Did it on the freshman team with Vince D'Addario,
That's right, baby. But who was all in attendance? All the varsity coaches.
Right. Okay, from Father David Penny, Notre Dame guaranteed to win 2 national titles in your lifetime, but you're never again allowed to attend a game in person. Are you in or out on that? So the trade-off is they win 2 national championships, but you're never allowed to go to a game again in person. Would you take that trade-off?
And if I go to the games in person, it's just a still roll of the dice. You know what I mean? Like there's still an opportunity. Let's just put it like I'm just going to round up. I'm 30. I'd like to say I'm going to make it to like 70, 80. So like 40, 50 more years of no games. I like my odds of Notre Dame finding a national championship in those 40 to 50 years. So I'm going to say I would take the games. I couldn't take the national championships.
You would take the games, not the championships? I'd take the championships, not the games, because I have been to games for 25 years now at this point. And so far, there has not been a national championship. And we had the question yesterday, the worst Notre Dame game you have ever attended. My answer was the BCS national championship game. What a letdown that was.
That was a huge letdown.
Are you still there?
Yes.
Okay. My thing did the spin, so it kind of went real quick. So I wasn't sure who was, if I was here, if you were there, what exactly was going on. All right, give me a second here, and I will queue up the next one. We're on to the next page. We in or we out on college teams being able to find players who get NIL dollars, similar to NFL policy regarding team rules, fouls, etc. Vince and I were talking about this yesterday. I think somebody asked it in the mailbag. You in or out on teams being able to find college players since they're making NIL money now?
I'm going to say out. I want to say in because they're still kids. You know what I mean? There's still mistakes to be made. I think I would be okay if you did something violation wise, like severe. You know what I mean? Like you took money from someone else, or
like you got a DUI and now you've got to give X amount of dollars to Mothers Against Drunk Driving, something like that.
That's a good way to put it as well.
That's what I would be like. I would be in, is because what the NFL does with their fines is that money goes to NFL charities. That's what happens with fines in the NFL. The team doesn't just take that money. They, those go to different things like that. So I would be in on that as long as that would be the stipulation that the money is going to whatever charity it has to be. And like you said, it would have to be a severe penalty, like a DUI or, I don't even know what other kind of thing it would be, but I would be in those kind of cases. Let me see here. Got to keep scrolling. Okay, so Notre Dame versus Florida State will be a top 10 game of the year contender that leads Notre Dame making a defensive stop late to win them the game. That from Jace. Are you in or out on that?
Out. I just don't see it being that sort of game. I think Notre Dame's going to handle that game, to be honest.
Do you?
Yeah.
So like you don't, yeah. So like if I'm reading this, it kind of means it's going to be sort of a classic game, really
back and forth. Someone kicks a field goal as time is expiring to win. That's kind of how I read it.
Yeah. So I would be out for that reason as well. I think it'll be relatively close for a good portion of the game, but I think Notre Dame will own the fourth quarter in that game. It's kind of my thinking right now. Other question, the O-line struggles early in the season, but finds its groove, and the offense becomes one of the most dynamic offenses in the country that can compete with anyone. In or out on that?
I'm going to say in, but by O-line struggles, I don't really see it as struggling. I just see it as, a group kind of taking its lumps. It's one thing to be in practice and go against the same defensive line in and out, day in and day out. But until you're actually on the field against a team that wants to rip your face off and get to the quarterback, it's just a little bit different. And so I think that there might be a little bit of discontinuity to start, but I think they'll get into it. And I think the offense will be a top 20 offense in the country by the time it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think that the offense is going to be good even early on, even if the offensive line does struggle a little bit. And I mean, struggle is a, pretty subjective kind of open for interpretation kind of term. How much they struggle, I don't think they're going to struggle mightily. There will be some growing pains as they get it figured out. 5 guys playing together for the first time and all that stuff, and a new quarterback and a lot of new faces on the offense. So I think that there will be kind of a breaking in growing period, and it's going to come at you pretty fast when you have to go to Texas A&M. So like if they don't look great against Texas A&M, we'll definitely say they struggled, but I think that they'll get it right. And I ultimately do think Notre Dame is going to have a very dynamic offense. And yes, they're going to be able to compete with anyone. So I'll go in on it. Clear Screen 25. Notre Dame women's basketball will win at least 20 games by at least 20 points next season. In or out on that?
Oh, man. How many games do they play these days? Like 40?
I want to say 30-ish in the regular season, and then I'll have to look. I can't even remember
I'm just gonna say we out. I think that's too big of a number. I think you'll catch a few ACC, kind of bottom feeder teams. You'll catch some of those early teams at the beginning of the season. Your kind of, I would call them like warm up games. You know what I mean? So I think that's too many. I think 10 is more reasonable.
They played 35 games last year, to answer your question. So again, like when
that's more than half.
Yeah. I'm going to be out. They did it 13 times last season. Even though they're going to be really good, they're also going to play some really good competition.
You just had that stat on the top of your head.
I looked it up. I'll say I cheated a little bit. I did look it up just to kind of see, because it felt like it was at least 10 or 12, and it ended up being 13. But they're going to run just all over. So like they throttled Purdue last year, and I don't see it being any different this year. But they're also going to play Texas. They're also going to play. We haven't seen it announced yet. They're going to play UConn. They're going to play that ACC schedule, and there are a couple other, even though I'm not allowed to say what they are yet, there's some other pretty good competition non-conference games that are going to be on there. So I'm gonna say out. I think it'll be a little bit under, maybe the 16, 17 range, but I don't think it gets to 20. ACC is really good. And that is it for We In, We Out tonight. We made it all the way through.
Woohoo!
With that, what's coming next.
Ba-da-dum.
Are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, keeping with the theme of the day, scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that a wide receiver will lead Notre Dame in both receptions and yardage this season?
Scale of 1 to 10. I'll put it at a 5 out of 10. I think it's a 50-50. I think Notre Dame's going to have more of a wide receiver guy and honestly more of a reception guy. But if a true stud wide receiver develops, then it's going to be, you know what I mean? That's going to be the guy that's ultimately going to have yards and receptions. But like we talked about, I think Notre Dame has a stable of wide receivers and a lot of mouths to feed. So I think the ball is going to be spread around a lot. So I do think you're going to have two different guys leading each.
So, but the question is, a wide receiver will lead Notre Dame in both receptions, and that doesn't mean it has to be the same receiver. I was making sure that I wrote this correctly.
Oh, I see.
I'm with DK. I'm at an 8. So it doesn't have to be the same receiver, just a wide receiver.
Oh, I'm 10 out of 10 then. I don't think a tight end is going to be your receptions guy.
Okay. All right. Again, I had to make sure that I wrote my own question right.
Sorry, no, I just can't read.
No, that's okay. That's okay. It's not like it hasn't happened, to you, to me, to Vince, to whoever before. So I'm in because, again, this offense is not going to go through the tight end anymore. It's going to be much more downfield, especially with the kind of targets that they have. And this just circles back to, like, I actually wrote this question before I knew we were going to get 800 wide receiver questions in we out, but that's kind of how it's been the last couple of weeks. People are very interested in the wide receivers. And so I'm in an 8, borderline 9. So I'll call it 8.5. I'm very confident that a wide receiver is going to be the leader in each of those categories. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava has better Heisman Trophy odds than Riley Leonard. I think I came pretty close on that, by the way. I think I came pretty close on saying
it's completely idiotic. We're talking about a guy who threw the ball 45 times last season, had 314 yards and 2 touchdowns. They essentially believe that a freshman is going to outperform, Riley Leonard. And I'm not trying to stand up here and say, Riley Leonard is this Heisman favorite and he's great and he's going to do all those things and he's just this absolutely stud quarterback. But at least Riley Leonard was on people's draft boards before he got injured. I don't understand how you can put someone ahead of Riley Leonard, who has no experience, who was never in any draft conversations, discussions, evaluations, etc. So it's just pure idiocracy to me.
Idiocracy. All right, ring the bell on that one, Jess. And I agree. Like when I was looking through the Heisman odds, I'm like, what? Like this is a good player, but where's the experience? What are you basing
Where's the
any of this on?
rationale?
Yeah, and it's not like he plays for Alabama where it would make sense if he's going to be high on the list, but he doesn't. Plays for Tennessee. They're going to win at least a couple of games. They're not going to be a national championship contender. So I just don't see it. Iamaleava.
Well, he's got Brent. I agree. He's got a lot to prove because there is a lot of hype and expectations. But again, this guy has still at least been talked about in the circles of playing at a high level, being on people's draft boards, and it's not just one person's; it's across the board. There's real interest in him beyond the injuries.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that Riley Leonard is going to win the Heisman. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying when you look at the Heisman odds, Leonard is not in the top 10 right now, but
Nico is.
Nico is. That's right. It's easier to say Nico than the whole thing. And that's the point, is just that it makes zero sense that a guy with Riley Leonard's experience coming to know, again, maybe it's just that people don't believe, maybe it's more than just recruits. Maybe it's that nobody believes in the offense that Notre Dame can put on the field. And they're just going to have to show everybody what it can be this season, which I think we're going to see a lot of that. I think a lot of people are going to be very surprised in a lot of ways with what they see from it this season. So Notre Dame and the Miami Hurricanes used to play pretty much all the time in the 70s and 80s. From 1971 to 1990, they played in every year with the exception of 1986. When you consider that Miami is in the ACC and Notre Dame has this scheduling arrangement with the ACC, would you like to see the Fighting Irish play the Hurricanes more often?
Yeah, I would. And I kind of like this idea of, kind of Notre Dame's in a peculiar position right now because of all the conference realignments and staying independent and their ties to the ACC. I mean, they kind of, in a roundabout way, can devise their own schedule to an extent, right? And so when you think about some of Notre Dame's old rivals, Miami, Florida State, some of those teams that they ran into in the 80s and 90s, I'm okay with them kind of cycling through them now and kind of restoring some of those old, rivalries, because us as fans still remember those games. And it's not like, Miami and Florida State are dumps of teams. Adding them to your schedule is going to boost them, right? They're still a good opponent overall. And I mean, Notre Dame, last time they played at Florida State, they lost. Last time they played at Miami in the Hard Rock, I believe.
Remember, they won in 2021.
Okay, yeah, they won in 2021. But they've it's not like they just, dominate these teams. They've had, Miami has had good teams that Notre Dame has struggled against. Same with Florida State. And so when you talk about, ways to kind of bring excitement to the schedule, I think that's a fun way to do it. Bringing back or rehashing some of these older rivalries that still have meaning and impact on some of the older fans.
Right. And as DK points out, Miami was supposed to be on the schedule because of their scheduling blunder. They are not this season, but it has still been since, what it was that, 2017, the last time that Notre Dame and Miami played. So even if it was going to be this year, you're still talking about 7 years in between games. I do believe they're going to pop up a little bit more regularly in the next few years, but I like what Sloppy Joe is saying. I like this. Like, I would take a home and home every 5 years so that every cycle, basically, like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, the cycle of a college career, so that every cycle Notre Dame and Miami are playing on each other's field at least once in that time. I think that would make a lot of sense because, look, Miami, for whatever they are, and they are, they have been largely inconsistent, Miami, Florida State, and Clemson are the three most marquee teams in the ACC right now when it comes to football. And so I definitely think that Notre Dame needs to see them more often. And they did away obviously with the Notre Dame Miami series because it got so contentious with the fights in the tunnel and everything else that was going on. It just got too nasty. Miami is a completely different kind of program since then. So I would like to see it more often, for sure. How about, I guess I just kind of brought this up. How about Florida State and Clemson? How regularly do they need to show up on Notre Dame's schedule?
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of just rotating home and home every 2 years with each of them. Home and home Clemson, home and home Florida State,
right?
Home and home Miami, home and home back to Clemson, right? I think Clemson is naturally kind of emerged as a soft rivalry for Notre Dame. But kind of how you want to call it. They played each other in the regular season. They've played each other in the playoffs before. So I think they become, again, like this soft rival, and Notre Dame being, an ACC school outside of football, even though they play majority ACC teams, it just makes sense to me. And then that way you're just staying fresh. You're not the same stagnant team every year. And I think it gives the opportunity for those teams to also kind of, it levels out those ups and downs, because if a team is bad for 10 years straight, you don't want to play them. And so I think you give yourself a better chance of rotating between those three, of playing a team. There's a better chance that one of them is going to be good in a pool of three than a pool of one every 10 years.
The more often you play them. Right.
Yeah.
Like if you space it apart, it's like, who knows what you're ever going to get when it shows up. But I think that like, it makes perfect sense, kind of what you're saying. Just rotate through there's a season coming up, I think in a couple of years, where Notre Dame is going to play both Florida State and Miami in the same season. So like that's kind of cool to see that. But again, like, I don't know that you necessarily need both of them in the same season, but if you just rotate through the three of these for Notre Dame, I think that would be a much more purposeful kind of functional use of that ACC agreement. Like, we still don't know to what extent Stanford is going to be bound to the ACC thing, or if Notre Dame is going to be able to kind of exempt them and keep them on every year. Again, we played the comment a couple of weeks ago from Bernard Meir, the Stanford athletic director, saying basically they've pretty much come to an agreement, but things just haven't been signed yet, that's going to continue. But again, we don't know, will that be part of the 5 ACC teams, or will it be kind of considered outside of it, since Notre Dame and Stanford have had this agreement for so long? Sloppy Joe says he'd like to see Notre Dame in Annapolis instead of Baltimore. Well, they obviously have played in, some different spots before as well, but they're never going to do that, because the Notre Dame game, when it's considered Navy's home game, that's Navy's big moneymaker. And that's why they play in the NFL stadiums, is that that is the game that makes Navy all of its money. So they're never going to play it in Annapolis, because the stadium is, yes, as John B says, too small. Back to the receivers. Andre says he thinks all the receivers are in wait-and-see mode with Notre Dame's offense this fall, even with one of the best offensive coordinators in the game. Could be. Again, I still think that after they get to see what this offense can be, and what wide receivers can look like in this offense, I think they'll ultimately start flipping some guys.
I think Andre actually brings up a good point. If you're a recruit, what is there to say, yes, I want to go to Notre Dame? Look at the wide receiver room and how it ended last year. Look at the offensive coordinator situation.
Right.
You're turning over on both of them. New OC, new wide receiver coach. You heard about everything that happened in the wide receiver room last year. So again, if you're a recruit, I'm not looking at that and being like, yes, that's definitely where I want to go, right? But I do believe that they are in a wait-and-see mode, because I just want to see, how this thing pans out. Is Denbrock going to hit the ground running? Is the offense going to hit the ground running? And I do believe that once, and I've said this, I feel like 5 times now throughout the show, but once once people see, okay, yes, this is the Notre Dame offense that we have been kind of expecting.
Heads will turn.
Yeah, heads will turn.
Yep, completely agree. All right, Alabama has an over/under season win total of 9.5. So let's predict their record for the season. Couple of soft ones to start off with: Western Kentucky and USF. See any way that Alabama loses to either one of those teams?
No, that's a win.
Okay, so we're 2-0. How about at Wisconsin? Interesting road game.
I think that game will start a little close, but I think Alabama will find its way to kind of pull its way out. I'm going to say a win, like a 14-point win, 10-point win.
I agree. Alabama wins it. I don't think Wisconsin is quite there under Luke Fickell, so we're going to go 3-0 as Alabama wins at Wisconsin. Then they return home to start SEC play. How about this for an SEC opener? Alabama and Georgia in the first month of the season. I got Alabama taking the L on this one.
Yeah, I got Alabama losing as well. I think just first-year head coach, experienced Kirby Smart. I think Georgia wins that game.
So now they're 3-1. Go to Vanderbilt.
That's a win.
4-1. South Carolina.
That's a win.
5-1. At Tennessee.
That's a win.
It's a win, but I think it's going to be a tussle. I think it's going to be a close one. So now what do we have them? 6-1?
Yes.
Then they have Missouri. Is Missouri going to be able to come anywhere close to what they did last year?
I just think that they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna be as good as last year, but I don't think they're gonna be bad. I still think they're gonna be a good team. I just don't see them beating Alabama. What you have to realize is the new Alabama, head coach. He's going to, he was a good coach at Washington, right? Had success at Washington. He's coming to Alabama with better players. So I don't question the X's and O's and that sort of stuff. I just kind of question, is the Alabama product still the same?
How close is it going to look? Yeah, I mean, he's obviously inheriting a program that's still stocked with talent. Really, it's going to come down to the difference potentially in how DeBoer prepares compared.
I just think are the players going to be bought in to a first-year head coach and fully believe that they are being led down the right path, right? It's like with Nick Saban, it's Nick Saban. The guy wins championships. You're not questioning what Nick Saban is doing. Everyone's bought in.
Right. So they're 8-1 after winning against Missouri, and then they go to LSU.
As much as this is going to pain some people, I think LSU is going to win this game.
I do too. I've got LSU beating Bama. Nussmeier, and I think so. So that makes them 8-2. Is that right?
Yes.
Mercer 9-2.
9-2.
At Oklahoma, and then they finish with the Iron Bowl in their last two games.
I have them losing to Oklahoma and beating Auburn.
I think they'll split those. I'm not sure exactly which one. I want to see what kind of Oklahoma team Brent Venables rolls out there this year, but I think they're splitting as well. So that makes them 9-3. So 9.5 was the over/under. So
it's a sharp line.
We've got them under. I think we've been under on most of the ones that we've predicted together this year. All right, so 9 wins for Alabama. Vince and I talked yesterday about how Bears head coach Matt Eberflus is the Vegas favorite to win the NFL Coach of the Year award with plus 900 odds. Others, Robert Saleh and new Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh are next at plus 1,100. Packers head coach Matt LaFleur plus 1,200. Raheem Morris in Atlanta and Houston's DeMeco Ryans plus 1,300. Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon and Detroit head coach Dan Campbell have plus 1,500 odds. Who would you put your bet on to win Coach of the Year this year out of that group?
This is an easy one. Look at the track record. Look at the guy who goes to place in place and uplifts the program, goes to college football playoffs, NFL playoffs. It's Jim Harbaugh. It's no doubt Jim Harbaugh. And the reason why it's Jim Harbaugh is he's a better coach and he's walking into more talent with it. The Chargers have enough talent. They've just been hurt and they need an offensive line. So what do? They draft the best offensive lineman in the entire draft, maybe of this decade. And Herbert's going to be healthy. They have the pieces there, and Harbaugh's the better coach. So I think this is easily Harbaugh.
If I'm going straight up value based on the odds that we're getting, I might go with my dude who's cranking his Metallica and he's out there treading water and just waiting to wear you down. Dan Campbell. I like those plus 1,500 odds that Dan Campbell has. They were actually replaying the Hard Knocks from a couple of years ago this morning on NFL Network. So I got to see a couple of Dan Campbell's
biting people's legs
speeches. Yeah, that's right. We're going to bite your leg off and everything else. So I do. I like me some Dan Campbell, until the Lions have to play the Cowboys, which is going to happen again this season, I think, right? If I'm not mistaken. So that would be my value pick. But I mean, plus 1,100 is still really good with Jim Harbaugh as well. And I completely agree. I think that he's going to come in and the Chargers are going to be a playoff team this year. And he's going to end up, that'll be a bigger turnaround than what Dan Campbell had since the Lions were already in the playoffs last year. So I think that Jim Harbaugh is the guy to pick on that. I agree with what you're saying. So speaking of Hard Knocks, on the Giants offseason Hard Knocks, their general manager, Shane, I can't think of it, Joe Shane, I didn't write it down here. He calls Saquon Barkley and tells him that they would let Barkley test the free agent market rather than slap the franchise tag on him. Barkley, of course, ultimately ended up signing with the Philadelphia Eagles. Do you think that Shane made the right decision to let him test the waters rather than, keep him around for at least another year under the franchise tag?
I do believe that he did make the right decision because, look, Saquon Barkley is 27 years old. He will be turning 20. Oh, he just turned 27 years old. Sorry. And so if you give him a contract extension of, let's say, at least 3 or 4 years, that gets him into his 30s. I am absolutely haunted and spooked by that Ezekiel Elliott contract. And I didn't believe it. I was so skeptical on, well, you don't give running backs a second contract. Okay, what happened to Le'Veon Bell, too? Gave him a second contract, right? And so because of, if I'm running a football team and I know that what's going to give my team the best chance, that's not giving a lot of money to a running back on a second contract. And I think it's also, I think he actually
did with an injury as well.
That's what I mean. We're talking about a running back's already had an injury. And I get it. He's gone over 1,000 yards 3 times, but that's fresh legs. You know what I mean? That's not 30-year-old legs, right? And so the part that was admirable to me is that he allowed him to go out and test the waters. He just didn't slap the franchise tag on him. Because I do believe Saquon did. Just because you're not willing to give someone that contract doesn't mean that they shouldn't be given the opportunity to go out and earn that contract for themselves. So I thought the situation was handled perfectly, but at the end of the day, I'm not giving that second contract out just because it's not worth it. You can draft a guy that's faster, quicker, and the ability to kind of, teach some things too.
Well, and, look, part of the conversation that they had, I can't remember if it was necessarily the same episode or the episode before even when they were talking about Barkley was, look, they've got a lot of other needs and they won 6 games last year. Now, granted, their starting quarterback was injured for more than half the season last year. So that plays into it as well after they were a playoff team the year before. But when you've got as many needs as the Giants have, why would you want to lock up that kind of money in a running back when essentially, the running back, the NFL treats running backs like a dime a dozen, right? And for all the reasons that you just laid out there, a 27-year-old running back, second contract, there's not a lot of value in that. I think they made the right decision as well to just let him walk. I mean, obviously it stings a little bit more that he goes to a division rival But there's not much that you can do, do about that when you're talking about free agency. He can ultimately go wherever he wants. So you can't control where he's going to go. But financially and everything else, I think it was the right decision. Same episode of Hard Knocks. Giants head coach, they're at the combine. Giants head coach Brian Daboll said he thinks that he could run a 7.0 40 time, a 7.0 or better in the 40. The rest of the Giants staff told him, no way. So my question to you, Jesse, Mr. Former linebacker, could you run a sub 740?
Yes, I could get under 6.
Really?
I could get under 6.
How much money do we have on this? Are we going to live stream this? I want to see this happen.
I guarantee it. Guarantee. I would be under 6. Rich Eisen runs a 5.98, a 6 flat in suit pants. I can run under a 6, 100%.
My only question personally would be, like, would my hamstring pop when I get, because I've had a history of hamstring issues. You've seen me now, right? Like, you remember, like, back in the day, the old guy's a little quicker than you thought, right?
Yeah. If you stay fully healthy, you could get under 7.
I think that I could too. If I'm healthy and I've got time to kind of work on the hamstrings a little bit, get them warm. Hamstring doesn't pop, like 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. They were kind of messing around because it was when Xavier Worthy was running his record-setting 40 time. Daboll was like, I think he was like, said something like, if I started off at the 20,
would I still lose?
Could I beat him? Would I still lose? And they were like, yeah. And he's like, where would I have to stand to have a chance to win? And they were like, the 35.
I did not see that. That's pretty funny though. I could definitely get under 6 right now. I might go outside and have Naomi time me and video it.
Hit the street, see what you can do. So Scott played like a champion, apologizing for the name.
No, I didn't. Right. It's not. I never take offense to it. I just think it's funny that my name is on banners and on. You know what I mean? It's like it's out there. It's no. If I ever say it and you feel like I'm mad, I promise you, I'm not. My great grandfather's name was Jesse, and he spelled it with an I.
Right, and that's who Jesse is named after. But my grandpa, your great grandfather, didn't necessarily like the I, so we took it out. It confused your grandpa for a little bit on the spelling. The name is obviously the same, but there is no
I just like to give people a hard time because I do feel like, literally, you could see it right now.
Right. All right, a few that I'm going to slip in here from DK at the end, some of what he started off with. He says Ted wins rookie poster of the year. What am I missing on that?
I think maybe poser.
Ted Power
in the chat.
Okay, gotcha. Rookie poster. So he's like the rookie of the year in terms of posting, basically, because he's come in hot this week. Okay, that makes more sense now that I've kind of thought that out. Another one from DK. Sean gets Tommy the job as women's basketball bus driver.
He's got the experience.
He does have the experience. There are not too many places where the basketball team actually has to bus, though, these days. I guess they do bus back and forth.
To the airport?
From Purcell to the airport. That's about it. So, Jesse will have 3 kids by 2032. In or out on that?
Out.
Okay, Jesse's saying no. And then Salty will host the new IB show, ILO Ryan, called The Great One on One, where Salty has just a conversation with himself in a mirror. I'll go in on this.
I'll go in. I don't know how many people are watching, though. That probably happens on a day-to-day basis if we're being honest.
Right. Salty, I think he checked out a while ago, but he said, why is it that receivers like Williams and Collins can see the value of being in this offense, but high school receivers can't? Well, high school, maybe not seeing the big picture just yet.
Well, high school is going to be wooed, like it. It's give me the most money. Tell me I'm gonna have 1,000 yards and 50 catches, and like
what can you promise me?
What can you promise me? And then if it hasn't been done and it's not on the field, then what are they supposed to believe?
Yeah. And I think these veteran guys like this, Williams and Collins, because they have experience, they're probably going to come in with better NIL deals right away as well. Let's just be honest, because again, Notre Dame's not going to pay a bunch of money up front to high school kids. You're going to have NIL opportunities, but I think that these older guys, because of the experience that they've got, they're going to come in with even bigger opportunities right away. Anthony, by the way, going back to the Paul Skeens conversation against the Brewers, Jesse, in case you missed it, 7 shutout innings, no hits, 11 strikeouts and 1 walk. ERA now at 1.9, making him the starter in the All-Star game, baby.
Looks like with that stat line, he could have been pitching opening day, but
Come on, service time manipulation. It's still a real thing. So
yeah. You want to be rewarded? Give me the full body of work.
I agree with what John is saying. Paul Skeens is the best pitcher in the National League. He might be the best pitcher in all of baseball.
No.
Excuse me. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today. So appreciate everybody for being here today. It was a nice, civil, kind of easygoing day with no TP in the chat tonight. So thank your lucky stars for that. Ted, you're welcome back anytime. Just be a little quieter. That's all you have to do.
Hey, you guys should for some homework. Well, no one really will care in this chat besides a few people, but Google MLB ERA leaders and go to the MLB website and tell me where you see Paul Skeens.
Oh boy. You're going to tell me that he doesn't show up because he doesn't have
doesn't qualify.
To qualify yet? Okay. All right. Scott, by the way, with some advice to you, Jesse, about getting married. Spend more on the honeymoon than the wedding. Spend more time on planning how your marriage will work than planning the wedding.
This is very nice advice, Scott.
I want to screenshot that.
I know. That's a good one.
It's very good sage advice.
He felt bad. He's like, how can I get back on the good graces?
That's right.
I got to drop some knowledge.
For a New York guy, he's coming in hot with that. I like it. All right. Well, hit the like button before you leave, and we will be back tomorrow to finish off the week. We are 20 days away from the start of Notre Dame training camp. So we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.